Literally until today.
At 1:30.
No. I texted
Are you alive? You text me saying if I'm alive.
No, look.
And I'm like, just me alive. Yeah. You went dark on me on Friday.
And you went dark on me all weekend.
Both of you were horrible. And calls and text messages.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, you heard a little bit of mommy and daddy talk there behind the scenes. How you doing, everybody? It has been a weird Monday, and this show is now included in all of that. Oh, thank you for watching The Yard Sign, everybody. The most important, relevant podcast in politics. Also, as I like to say, the most diverse, conservative podcast in politics. Yours truly, Jonny Torres. Don't forget, if you can't watch tonight's full episode, you can also catch the audio version of tonight's episode on one of the tech overlords at Google, Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, Odyssey, iHeartRadio, and now Samsung Podcasts as well. So if you have a Samsung device, it should be very easy to find The Yard Sign. And subscribe, like it, share it, please. We'd certainly love you for it. Certainly as we get closer to really campaign season kicking off here in 2022 next year. Let's go ahead and run down today's topics so we can get to tonight's discussion about all the things there are to talk about. And of course, Senator Bob Dole's passing. We'll talk a little bit about how we came to get to know Bob Dole and of course, how he'll be remembered as much as we can remember about Bob Dole, because that's a story in and of itself. The Cuomo brothers currently filing for unemployment. So if there happen to be any thousands of jobs out there that don't require you to hold any actual responsibility that you wouldn't take full advantage of, feel free to reach out to those guys. They do love hugs and kisses. Kamala Harris, the biggest disaster since the Titanic, as she loses 5 staff members all in about a week. What does that say about her? What does that say about 2024? And of course, Democrats leading into the midterms and into the next presidential election. And finally, we'll do a broad, kind of very overview look at what's happening in our judicial system. There's 2 huge cases happening right now. One, which can be just disastrous for the elite around the world, in Ghislaine Maxwell, and of course, Jussie Smollett.
Juicy Smollett.
That's right. And his whole hoax trial and everything that's kind of all the fallout that's come from that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and over to the big table for tonight's guests. We have, as always, joining me from left to right, Anibal David Cabrera. How are you, sir?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, wearing scarves as always, only now they're actually seasonally appropriate.
I take offense of that. So I was able to find the box.
You live in Florida. Like, the fact that you have more than one scarf, I think, is a bit ridiculous.
How dare you, sir? I'm allowed to wear whatever I want to wear. Am I a little warm? Yes, but that's okay.
And sitting next to him, looking just jarred, befuddled, I think might be a good word.
I'm not getting into the scarf conversation.
He has no place to talk
The king
about.
of Tampa Bay football and hopefully a future county commissioner here for District 1. That is Scott Levinson, everybody.
Jonathan, what was your original comment of
we'll leave that one in the outtakes.
Okay, outtakes.
Yeah.
Bloopers.
Yeah, much, please. Wonderful to be here again. I always love coming here.
Thank you.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
It makes you humble with my buddy to the right of me. But
because he just sucks all the ego out of the room.
Besides, you guys needed me here tonight. If we're going to talk about Bob Dole, you need someone that was at least old enough.
That's
to
exactly
vote
right.
When Bob Dole was around,
We need someone that could vote.
Someone
in '96.
Someone that at least knew what he accomplished, even to some extent. I was
31, and you all were still in grade school.
Yeah, pretty much.
Grade school.
I think middle school for me. Well, we were talking about, how, really, I mean, he was easily one of the most prominent senators in Washington, D.C. I'm going to hook this up, back up real quick. But
It was different.
And you know, he I guess ran with Gerald Ford at one time for vice president, and then of course had two runs for president, both unsuccessful.
Right.
But the one that sticks out to me, just to kind of get started on you know, remembering Senator Dole, I discovered him through Saturday Night Live. My parents allowed me to watch Saturday Night Live. They, you know, and this was really in the early 90s when the political stuff really became a cornerstone of what Saturday Night Live is today.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because they had Phil Hartman, because they had Dana Carvey. They had these incredible impressionists that just nailed these guys.
They did, and even before, and this might go back to the original cast, where they really started was, if everyone remember, well, you all won't remember, but when Gerald Ford was the president, he had a problem falling down.
Right.
And everyone thinks Chevy Chase, who was 1 year on the show.
Yep.
But Chevy Chase, it started as him imitating Gerald Ford falling down.
Oh, funny.
So if you watch every show, Chevy Chase was the one that started the show.
Yeah.
And he would always fall down the steps.
Right.
He would fall
Because this was
down.
before they had the guest host.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but once that Norm Macdonald did a wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, he did an amazing Bob Dole. And again, like, seeing Norm Macdonald's Bob Dole is basically how I remember Bob Dole. I mean, you had the stiff arm, you know, which was a war injury, much like John McCain's.
Yes.
You had the very, the very... Oh, now I'm forgetting the term, but you know, his way of speaking, you know, was very monotone. That was the word I was looking for. Very monotone, and there was just a weird kind of like timbre, like a kind of like rhythm to the way he spoke. It was very kind of straight, uptight, like, you know, and it was just such a stark contrast to then a very young and, you know, exciting politically
Saxophone
player, right? You know.
Right.
Guy from Arkansas, you know,
And,
it's and Bill Clinton.
Bob Dole, to me, and that's pretty much, he was one of the last what I'll call gentleman politicians.
Okay.
Back then. Why they argued and they fought, it was nothing like it is today.
Right.
They seem to respect each other, at least outwardly respect each other. His big battle over the years was George Bush.
Oh, okay.
One and him just never saw eye to eye.
Oh, wow.
And it was touching. One thing I will remember of Bob Dole, even though it was much later in life, was when George Bush died, and at the funeral, and they rolled Bob Dole up in his wheelchair, and the man couldn't walk, couldn't even get.
Right.
And when he stood up and saluted, that to me said what a gentleman he really was. And
When simultaneously we were also in this universe where, like, President Donald Trump was not being invited, you know, being essentially uninvited to events like that, you know, where, you know, they asked him not to attend certain events and funerals, and, you know, and so like you were saying, I think it was a turning of the chapter really in American politics.
It definitely was. And once you hit the Gore Bush recount and hanging Chads and
well, and the true animosity, the polarization that I see that we have today, that also stemmed from going into Iraq and Afghanistan after September 11th.
Oh, no doubt about it. Because even if you look back at Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich, they worked amazing together.
Right.
You know, you
they
just
had to.
they did, but even back to the Tip O'Neill days.
Now,
you
some
didn't have the
but see, some people say that was as a result of the way that spending was done back then. You had a lot of these pork bills. You had a lot of, and I'm forgetting the political term that there was for it back then, but
pork barrel spending.
well, yeah, and that was essentially it. I mean, I think there was another term, but basically where you
Cheating?
you know. they had to get along, because if they wanted to get money back to their district, they had to get the approval from the other side. There had to be negotiation taking place. Nowadays, because a lot of that money has been kind of cut out, they don't have to play nice with each other anymore, because they're not really fighting tooth and nail for every vote in the way that they used to.
Remember, back in the day, you had to get that 60 votes to pass the budget. Now, I don't think you need to do that anymore. You only need
it's
majority.
reconciliation and everything now, but it was just when they said the gentleman from Missouri or the gentleman from Oklahoma, they meant it back then.
Right.
It wasn't the vigor, the vile, that you see. I mean, if I'm going to compare Bob Dole to Chuck Schumer, please. Please. I mean, it was a different time. And like you said about his arm, something that people that didn't know he had the war injury, if you remember his bad arm and hand, he always had a pen.
Oh, the pen, right?
Always had a pen in it. Yeah.
But, and again, I think a lot of the polarization came about not only from 9/11 and the partisan disagreement as to whether or not to go into Iraq, go after Saddam Hussein. Obviously, we now, there's less debate over that particular decision. But we certainly see where some people will say that a lot of the partisan divide, the reason that there is, it's so black and white now in Congress, is because, again, they don't have to go along to get along anymore to get a lot of this money back to their own districts.
No, but you also, let's look at the leadership, and when you have leadership in the dinosaurs that you have in there now, they're not changing their ways.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They're just not. Nancy Pelosi is not ever going to be any different than she is now. There will never be compromise. There will never be.
It's a zero-sum game.
Because, again, they don't have to.
No, they don't have to.
I mean, they're fighting over a handful of votes versus, dozens of votes.
Well, look what happens now in the Senate when you have such a razor-thin majority, technically, because of the vice president, that they are doing, one senator can ruin an entire agenda, which is what should be happening. There should be a consensus. You should be getting multiple, across the aisle kind of situation.
Yeah.
And again, because you're playing this game, you have senators that are very Republican districts, and those senators are more popular than ever in their districts and in their states, even though the country hates them.
Well, and that's the thing. The process is designed to be very deliberate, and the process is also designed to reach compromise.
And to be very slow.
That's the way, right.
Yeah.
The Founding Fathers designed it specifically that way. So not only would a lot of thought go into what exactly was being put into legislation, but also so that not one side was getting everything that they wanted. But, back to Bob Dole again, very little recollection, at least personally, other than, again, seeing him as a news item and, and kind of in caricature. As I said, before we went live, I certainly didn't expect Norm Macdonald to pass away before Bob Dole.
No.
But man, given the life that he lived, I mean, to see him, make it this far is pretty incredible.
He was, like I said, I look back at those times, and as most know, I was not and I can't say I am now either, but I was not a political fan.
Yeah.
I thought politicians and have a obscure take on a lot of things, but at least back then, it was like the days of Walter Cronkite. He reported the news.
Right.
He actually reported the news.
Yeah.
With no opinion. I'm comparing them to today.
Sure.
Today they make up the news.
Well, they at least differentiated between the news and when they were giving their opinion.
Correct.
You could tell.
Because Cronkite was staunchly against the Vietnam War.
Of course. But he told you that was his
right,
opinion.
Exactly. Yeah.
He would, this is the news, this is my thoughts.
Yep. Yeah. They didn't try to disguise it as
no.
Right.
Now you've got the Rachel Maddow types where her opinion is the news.
Yep. Yeah. So, again, I mean, it's it is again I think a huge passing, in regards to generationally. I think he signifies the passing of a political generation that we'll probably never see again. I think you see smatterings of remnants, right? Like I think Mitt Romney is very much a kind of political candidate, elected official of that time. No, like I mean, in the terms of again, very clean cut. It was
He
like
fits the mold.
He does fit.
Very careful. About what he says, what he doesn't say.
As a I think he's a boomer. I'm under the impression that he's a boomer. He fits that last kind of what a Republican.
But it's probably because he came from a political family.
Yeah.
I mean, so again, if you look at the Bushes, for instance, I mean, you see that in Jeb. You see that even in W. Now, you don't see it as much, but if you follow Texas politics, you see that in George P. A little bit, but he's certainly a more contemporary politician.
He's our age, actually. He's in his 30s.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. But again, it's it's
Whose age?
But he's certainly, you can see where he's not as kind of cookie cutter molded, into the politician that he is. He certainly seems more relatable and down to earth, than even though his dad, again, what you see is what you get with Jeb. He was still very much of that kind of, a political candidate cutout.
Yeah, and I will say, we were talking about this earlier off camera, that one of my first memories of even hearing the word Bob Dole was at the end, and I don't know if many people have seen this, but the ending credits for the birdcage in the wedding scene, and you have them do a close-up to a few of the drag queens on the groom's side, looking across at the very Republican side of the room, and one of them leans over, one of the drag queens leans over, like, Bob Dole looks phenomenal or like looks gorgeous, and I'm like, who is Bob Dole? Again, I think it was like 6 when this was happening. So
that is one of my top.
It's a great reference.
Favorite movies.
Yeah,
I love that.
Just is one of my top 3 favorite movies.
Well, and I love it because it's based in Miami, and it always makes me a little homesick to see the early days of South Beach,
the craziness of South Beach,
the early craziness of South Beach.
There's another movie that talks about, and it's even earlier than that one that has scenes of South Beach when it starts.
It's called Scarface.
No, it is called. Oh my god, I cannot remember the name of it, but it's an old mob movie.
Yeah,
actually, and these old mob Italians from New York are retiring in Miami Beach.
Oh, funny!
And all these young kids are moving into Miami Beach because it's becoming the new thing.
Yeah.
And they're figuring out ways to like get them out of the building.
Oh, I've been watching. I've been rewatching Miami Vice.
Oh,
yeah, and so good. It holds up.
Dude,
the acting's a little over the top, just slightly over the top.
Look, I had the linen suits with the push-up sleeves.
Nice.
And that was my.
You wore the V-neck underneath.
Yeah, that was my high school. You think about it. That was my 80s. That was high school, college for me.
Are you telling me?
Did you have the Ferrari too?
Are you telling me at one point of your life you had a fashion sense?
I have a fashion,
Robin, this is towards you actually.
I have a fashion sense. It's just nonsense.
It's just. I was going to say it's about 12 cents, but that's a good line too.
You're just jealous.
When
I wake up, I know what I got to do on the field.
When I wake up, I look at what scarf I need to wear.
Oh my!
In rotation.
Everybody, it's Monday night. Thank you so much for joining us here in the Yard Sign. If you want to join the conversation, you can do so on Clubhouse right now. We are live. Search for me, Jonny Torres, or search the Yard Sign as to one of the open groups. You can join, listen, and take us with you wherever you want to go on your mobile device while you're listening to us on Clubhouse. And you can also join the conversation. Go in there, raise your hand, and we'll bring you into the conversation here as we continue with tonight's topics. Now we go on to it's one of those things. You don't want to be happy about this sort of thing, but I think it could not have happened to 2 nicer guys. Chris Cuomo follows his brother in the unemployment line as CNN now it took them long enough, has discovered through their own and external investigation that Chris Cuomo was abusing his role at CNN and media sources to CNN in an effort to try to help his brother navigate the current sex scandal that I think is also currently in the courts, right? Isn't it in that trial also going on right now? I thought I saw tapes of depositions and video depositions, that sort of thing.
I don't know if it's like trial yet.
It's definitely not at the trial section yet.
Because I thought I saw where they were doing depositions.
But
Okay.
that's a pre-trial completely. I will say this: I am very concerned that it took a week of an internal investigation by an outside law firm to force CNN to remove him as an anchor.
And apparently it's a lot more.
Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
it's allegations from 10 years ago from a different network.
Well, mind you, and it was months that CNN sat on the story, did nothing about it. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks ago, they decided to suspend him indefinitely.
And the only reason why is because the text messages back and forth from the AG's office were released.
Right.
And you could actually see that, he was using other people in the news industry to try to get dirt on these women.
Yeah, it wasn't like, hey, you're a communications expert, what should we do here?
Yeah, no.
They were literally trying to kill the story.
Does this really surprise anyone?
Yeah. No.
No, but and that's why I wanted to talk about it today, because I think the larger point here is that I think this is something that's very common in the media. I mean, we talk about the woman who had the story at ABC about Jeffrey Epstein years before,
And the only reason why we know about it because a hot mic was on.
Right, exactly. She didn't know the camera was on, and her mic was on, and they happened to catch her on video being angry, as many journalists are when they get scooped. She had the scoop 3 years before everybody else, and ABC killed the story because they were worried about access to
The prince. It was during the wedding.
Yeah,
it was during the royal wedding.
Yeah, and they were
I
worried
don't know why
about.
I know that.
Yeah, couldn't imagine. And so they wanted access to the prince, and obviously, it's Prince Andrew is very closely involved in and has already been accused of a number of things relating to Jeffrey Epstein and his private island and some of the women that were there, or young girls, I should say.
So it's a mess. So Hector Gonzalez, hey Hector, hi Kimberly Davis for watching.
Hey,
also.
Hector. Hey,
So
Kimberly Davis.
Cuomo wasn't on his Sirius XM show today either. So I think
I'm sure XM's ready to pull the plug too.
Again, the simple fact is it wasn't 8,000 or 6,000 old people dying because of the governor's decisions to get him knocked out.
That's not important.
No, not at all. Not at all. It took like 12 or 13 allegations. Yeah. And even then they didn't do it. He resigned because of the pressure. They didn't remove him. And it's just that form of hypocrisy that we believe all women unless it's a Democrat that was supposed to replace Biden. Yeah. Like that's the kind of world that we're living in, especially the cesspool that's in New York. It's absolutely disgusting.
Well, and it goes again back to why I wanted to go to the larger point being, we see the incestuous relationship that there often is between the media and politics. You see that there's, and I don't have the list in front of me, but there's plenty of people who, one spouse will work in politics, and then the other spouse works in the media. And you see, again, a lot of that crossover, and you see the extent to which they are willing to go to defend those that of their side and those of their ilk. Now, obviously, a brother is a very different situation than maybe an elected official that they side with, or but we know that the media has been protecting the Clintons for ages. We know that part of the reason that the media is almost entirely silent on this Ghislaine Maxwell trial is because Bill Gates is involved and Bill Clinton's involved and and Prince Andrew's involved and they're so fearful of reporting the actual news and the actual fallout that would come from reporting what's actually happening that they would rather not do their job and not do their diligence as journalists and report what's actually going on.
Oh, we can't even get... So, yes, this happens in D.C., this happens in New York. This also happens in Hillsborough County. The nepotism that occurs in this county, the internal politicking that occurs in Tallahassee, occurs in Hillsborough County. This isn't just something of the elites. This happens even in local politics. And again, I'm not going to call it names, Yes, it would be a lot
Why?
of fun. Because I'm not that kind of person.
Write them down.
I will write them.
Write them down. I'll call them out.
But you see these kind of political favors happening, at every level of government, and we've seen it at the state level. We've seen it, and it's happening on both sides. I mean, we're not taking sides here. I mean, you see it happening on both sides. Now, the protectionism certainly happens more so on the left. When it comes to, again, these major media outlets protecting, Democrats. And again, it goes back to like when Democrats are convicted of a crime, they don't mention that they're Democrats, But when a Republican's convicted of a crime, they make sure to mention that the individual was a Republican.
And it also depends who it is. You look back at how quick they cut off Al Franken's legs. Yeah. I mean, and when you look back at what he did, you say, really?
Yeah.
They got rid of him that quick.
While he was a comedian, not a politician.
What he did was when he was a comedian, but you will talk to a liberal or even a progressive about that particular, and they'll admit that they should not have allowed Franken to be taken out that way.
Yeah, that was. I mean, believe me, I'm not a big Al Franken fan. Was not even into his daily affirmation on Saturday Night Live, but that was a little harsh.
Well, again, in comparison to what the Me Too movement now was actually intended for, which is like what happened at Fox News with Roger Ailes, right? What's happening with the Cuomos, what's happening, what we see so prevalent. Yes, there are valid times where certain people need to be taken out. But, we look at the incestuous relationship again, that allows for this stuff to happen. When you're talking about people that are now disguised as journalists in like George Stephanopoulos. George Stephanopoulos is not a journalist. George Stephanopoulos was a Clinton advisor.
He was a spokesperson for the Clintons. And then he's interviewing the Clintons. And I'm like, this is not appropriate.
Exactly. Or you see when Chelsea Clinton used to work at NBC, or even Jenna Bush, used to work at NBC as well.
I think she still works at NBC.
Jenna, probably on the Today Show.
Yeah, she's in the morning.
She's done well with the Today Show.
Guys, it's all about the Benjamins.
Yeah,
I mean,
it really is,
and not to be biased. However, we can easily look at the Trump administration and see how many positions were taken up by Trump family members. So even though they weren't getting paid, there still politics itself is a very big cesspool of
but
nepotism.
To me, there is a difference also into what type of roles do they have.
But
because you look at Jared Moskowitz's role, and honestly, he deserves a lot of credit for the accomplishments
they hate him.
of the Trump administration.
The liberals hate him. Even some of my favorite podcasters cannot stand him.
Right. Well, because he brought people to the table.
Yeah, he did.
He got things done.
But in all honesty,
Abraham Accords.
Let me ask you a question though. In politics, and again, I'm learning it and seeing it and realizing what it is, and it can be pretty vicious.
Yeah.
And if you've got to look for someone to trust, and I mean, you're going to look at family, especially if they're qualified. I mean, and it's not just recently.
Well,
let's look back at the Kennedy administration.
Sure. Oh, that's nothing but family.
Well, the fact that
the
that's
sitting
my president had the audacity to nominate his brother as the attorney general.
That was amazing.
I mean, that's crazy. Like that, I don't think you could get away with that nowadays.
Well, they're trying to do that to Kamala. They want to push her to the Supreme Court.
Well, it would be like the Castro brothers.
Just stop it.
It would be as if the Castro brothers, if one of them got elected and then the other one went ahead and appointed the other one,
the thing is, if the president is that pretty, then you can get away with a lot.
Well, that was the thing. Everybody was enamored with him.
Yeah, they loved him.
And enamored with the family.
And then what happens in Texas?
Yeah. So, but we see so many examples of this, and I think, I don't know. I mean, and I'm, I think it wouldn't be hard to really kind of to tie, this situation with what's also happening with Democrats in general, which is that we're seeing the foundation, we're seeing like the curtain getting pulled back on who they really are. right? Whether it's in the media or whether it's in politics. I mean, our next topic is about Kamala Harris, right? And how basically her office is in complete disarray right now. She lost 5 of her key staff members in less than a week. And again, you don't just leave a job at the White House. I mean, it's a big deal to get one and then to leave one
in less than a year.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. We've seen The West Wing. We know it ages you very quickly and you get burnt out. So people leaving after a year or 2 years, that makes sense. That's kind of
from the vice president's office.
No.
Where again,
why am I even hearing about people leaving in the vice president's office?
Right.
Like that's supposed to be a quasi cushy job. Like you don't get many assignments.
Because what is the again, unless you have someone like Biden, who some say is throwing her under the bus when it comes to like the issue at the border, and when you talk about again kind of being somewhat of the face out on the road of this particular administration.
So Scott, when you've been in a leadership position multiple times in your life, you've led a large organization. When you cannot trust your second in command, and you can't fire them, like what do you do?
As far as the way you govern the body, or as far as the way you deal with that person in particular?
I think deal with that person in particular.
I have found, and I can honestly say, luckily enough, my number 2 was always someone I felt I could trust. Now, moving down the line, there were those I didn't. I don't feel you can run an effective administration, whether it be political, whether it be at a youth league, whether it be at the Salvation Army. As the buck stops here guy, you have to feel comfortable with the people around you. You have to be able to do your job without looking over your shoulder. And to be quite honest with you, I did quite, I don't want to say a lot, but there was 4 or 5, 6 times over 20 years where I did not feel comfortable with someone that was part of my executive committee. And I was very quick, some say at times too quick, but if there is dissension in the executive ranks, then it is sensed and seen from the general.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I was very quick to either ask them to step down or put in motion the steps to remove them.
Yeah, because in this case, obviously, he doesn't really have that choice. Like, he can't just remove Kamala Harris.
But he also didn't pick Kamala Harris.
No, that's true.
We are watching what happens with at most, the top job of affirmative action. Yeah. The reason, and this is sad, and this shouldn't have been the case, the reason why she was put on the ticket is because those that were in leadership of the Democratic Party felt that she would be able to pull the black vote, the black female vote. And they thought putting her would champion that situation. She didn't earn it. She wasn't vetted for it. She didn't have a good relationship with Biden. I mean, they were attacking each other during the primaries.
She went at him hard.
Yeah, and she didn't win any votes in her own state.
He didn't remember that though.
No, and I think they leveraged. I think the people close to Biden leveraged that to their. I mean, I'm not saying that actually happened. I mean, but I think it was one of those things where they did. I mean, we're looking at a party who is obsessed with identity politics. Correct. And they went off and they checked off all the boxes, and the only one that really they couldn't stand, even more so than Kamala Harris, was Tulsi Gabbard. You know what I mean? And so that left her as kind of the only choice. I mean, because I don't think they were ballsy enough to put Pete Buttigieg in that second
and
seat.
They weren't going to pick, who's the one that's running for governor now in Georgia?
Stacey Abrams.
They weren't going to pick her.
I don't think she wanted it.
No, she wants the governorship. And even now, I don't think she's going to get it. The midterms are going to be craziness. However, again, with Kamala, there's been so many problems with her administration, with her campaign. I was very surprised that they picked her. Her campaign tried to unionize. Could you imagine? You've worked on campaigns.
So did Bernie's.
And so did Bernie. Can you imagine a campaign unionizing?
Right.
You're like, guys, you're here for less than a year. You're really just here to work, get paid, and leave.
Right. But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, do you believe in this stuff or not? And so it's
can't.
hilarious because I think it's only going to become a bigger issue.
It should.
as more of these Democrat campaigns happen.
No Republican campaign is ever going to
No,
unionize.
but we saw it happen with Bernie, and he had a
Saw
huge
with Bernie,
issue.
yep.
And then also when it came to the minimum wage issue, we
Yep.
saw them also have problems because they were out there touting this $15, $20 minimum wage. Meanwhile, their staffers weren't even making that much.
This might sound a little crazy, but I do not believe in a presidential election they should name a vice president until they've been elected to office.
Well,
Part of me thinks, and obviously the only part where it gets tricky is that they're the deciding vote, right?
Yeah.
In which we now tend to have more of a 50-50 Senate than ever.
Does anyone
right?
vote for president because of their vice president?
not in this cycle. Actually, no. Pence.
but-
There are many evangelicals
yeah.
voted for Trump because of Pence.
Right.
I don't think anyone voted for Bush Jr. because of Darth Vader. I don't think that occurred. Dick Cheney. The man shot someone in the face and had him apologize to Dick Cheney.
Yeah, that was the Dick Cheney administration.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it.
He jumped in front of the pheasant
To save the
to
pheasant.
save the pheasant.
Sure he did.
See, Republicans are conservationists.
Because that's what hunters do. Hunters jump in front of... Yeah, uh-huh.
Absolutely. But I really do believe that a vice president is there to serve at the pleasure of the president.
Which is
But that hasn't always been the case.
But that is a true statement.
Remember
But we're there now.
Up until let's say modern politics, I mean, it was a completely separate elected office.
Yeah, but we also didn't have. I mean, what was the last
and
time?
oftentimes they weren't even from the same party.
Congress wasn't even in Republican hands prior to Reconstruction. Like it was like 100 years before the Republicans took back the Congress. So yes, we've had a long-term situation where the vice president was really. The first 2 or 3 elections, it was the runner-up. Was the vice president. Like that's how the politics used to happen for a while until Jefferson. So that's when you realize how much power they really do have. And you send them to do stupid things. They're basically our prime ministers, honestly. But I will say there always have been issues
So
with
you're saying
Kamala.
the Queen has power?
Why you gotta do that? Why you gotta go there with me? I will say this.
I know that's your weakness.
Well, I got to be honest with you. Over there,
She has a lot more influence.
She's got a lot more influence than the prime minister does. I think.
She causes more problems, honestly. Anyways, back to my original point before you brought Her Majesty into this conversation. Okay. Kamala's administration and even her offices prior, before she became vice president, was in turmoil. There were rumors about her not reading the briefs before things and then yelling at her staffers. It's a toxic work environment, and not because she's a woman.
A toxic individual.
She is a very toxic individual. And it's not because she's a woman. It's not because of her race. It's because of who she is as a person.
Yeah.
And people don't like that. And you think that's going to translate into a presidential bid? I mean, Hector, yes, I think it would be interesting to see if they allow for Beto to be vice president. You know what? F it. I don't even know who. If Biden, and I don't want this to happen, but if Biden passes away before
Beta's
second
too busy
cycle,
being a martyr in Texas.
oh my God. He still says he's going to take everyone's guns away. I love it. I absolutely love
Texas.
it. In Texas.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
No. No, there's nothing else to say on that. No.
Oh my God. Okay, so to read some of the commentaries and everything else, yes, Kim, there was a video of Biden saying that he would immediately fire anyone who was bullying or being in a bad work environment. I agree with that, and I doubt he's going to get rid of his vice president. I believe he is allowed to ask her to resign. The president is allowed to ask someone to resign.
But the problem right now for the Democratic Party...
let us know what the secession plan is for that.
The problem right now with the Democratic Party, though, is who do you replace her with? Gretchen Whitmer's turned out to be a huge hypocrite. I don't think she'd pass the muster.
No.
And she's easily one of the more popular Democrats that are out there, not currently in D.C. Gavin Newsom, forget it. He barely survived the recall. New York, obviously, also and there's nobody at the the lights are barely on in New York.
There's no one there. There's no one there.
And so you look around, and I mean, Val Demings. I mean, she's going to run for Rubio's seat. I mean, she's going to lose.
The moment they went with Hillary Clinton during the first Trump administration for that first election, they killed their bench. The fact that happened, I don't see a bench for the Democrats.
No, they don't. And what shocked me was that they would go with someone who has a history in law enforcement in the middle of the basically the law enforcement being the biggest target of Democrats and liberal activists.
Yeah, how's that
more
working
so than
for
ever, right? I mean, but you've got a woman who basically, is incarcerated more men of color than any of her predecessors in the state of California, and yet that's the person that they put into the seat for vice president.
Yes, because she's a black woman, and the only reason why. How offensive is that? How offensive is that? That
they knew that
the only reason why you're there is because of your color,
and
your color, and your
voters,
skin.
right? And they knew Democrat voters would only care about that.
Nothing else is because that's so offensive.
Yeah.
That's why the whole affirmative action thing has always been upsetting to me, because you're filling a quota. So are you really there for the reasons that you need to be there?
No.
Did you really earn it?
Well, like Buttigieg. I mean, what has Buttigieg done? And so what's funny is that it forced the whole issue right now with the supply chain and all the ships and all this stuff. It forced Democrats to come to the table and be like, well, he's really just a figurehead.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have to be there. There's a whole bunch of people that work under him that make all the decisions.
And then they were trying to push, well, he should be allowed to be with his child. That was his
not in the middle
else.
of a national or global supply chain crisis.
I'm sorry. I liked it when our politicians they're elected for a reason. They're put in these positions for a reason. And if they can't handle it, then they shouldn't be in the job. But again, did you watch the documentary, Pete Buttigieg, on Amazon Prime, I believe? Oh my gosh, I didn't either. I just saw the Cliff Notes.
I'm going to not watch that one right after I do not watch the Colin Kaepernick one. So, in fact, actually, let's go ahead live to Kamala Harris's office right now and see if anybody's working. No, nobody's working.
If I get one more direction from production staff, I'm going to walk off the stage. No one was here to do my makeup.
I think considering how the day is going, I think we'd all be safer in listening to said producer for it. It's just been that kind of day. So, all right. Thank you, everybody, for watching the Yard Sign. We are live on Clubhouse. If you want to join the conversation, we'd love to have you on. Join us in the Yard Sign room, or look for me, Jonny Torres. Again, we want to bring other people into the conversation, just like calling into a radio show, and you can do that via Clubhouse. Now, if you are not able to watch today's full episode, don't forget you can download the audio version of our podcast over at the Tech Overlords at Google, Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and now Samsung podcasts. So if you're a weirdo like a certain Anibal David Cabrera and do not subscribe to an iPhone, but choose an Android device instead, and it happens to be a Samsung.
I feel attacked. I feel attacked. Oh, we're gonna keep on pushing this episode. First of all, some of the most stubborn people on earth are those that never converted to iPhones. I saw that meme today.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's perfect. What do you got? You got the jitterbug?
We're not even on TV. Okay, now we're back.
I'm with Cricket. No.
He is a man of the people.
Jitterbug.
I have, first of all, in my life, I hate to say it, is Google. So I have the Pixel 6.
Yeah.
Google phone. I got to be honest, I love it.
I've heard good things.
I love it because the coolest part about it is it's got the magic eraser.
Yeah.
So if I take a picture and there's someone photobombing or whatever in the background,
really cool.
You can just take them out.
Yeah.
And
if Silicon Valley were somehow absorbed by an enormous crater in the earth and I had to use an Android phone, I would go to a Google phone.
I enjoy it.
It makes sense.
Do.
It's
family pictures, mother-in-law.
The people that make the software or is making the hardware. I like it.
Well, they've got their own processor now.
The Windows Phone, which was quite good.
I liked it.
I loved it.
I liked it.
I loved my Windows Phone, and that was before I became an Apple user. But again, it's like taking the engine of a Ferrari and sticking it into a Corvette. It's like okay, it might work, I guess, but is that right?
Well, I like they have their own processor now.
I mean, the
It's
reason
their
why,
own- and
the reason why I don't use iPhones is because I don't believe in child labor, and because of that, I try to make sure that I'm American made.
what shoes are you
The
wearing?
comment section.
What
they're
shoes are you
First of all,
wearing?
these are from Italy. So
I'm
let's
sure
all calm
I'm sure
down.
your phone was made with prenatal
Let's
labor.
all
Okay.
let's all calm down.
I am anti-Apple. I really am.
They're not the Republic. They are they are the empire.
I do not appreciate walking into a store and looking for a phone case.
It's $47.
And they have 3 aisles full of Apple and one little sliver of an end cap for everything else.
Right.
And that's why I'm running in politics, because I refuse to let the big guys take over. Someone's got to fight for the Android guys.
Yeah, but they know that the money's not made on the accessories. The money is made on building the
Also, now
infrastructure.
we're just focused on money. So besides child labor, we're also just going to focus on
Yes.
the bottom line.
That is capitalism 101.
I know. I completely agree. Mrs. Producer. I will say this:
All
the
right.
comment section is blowing up.
Let's check in with those
Chase
guys.
Harrison, hey Chase, by the way, I have an iPhone, but I can't wait to get back to a Samsung.
Don't do it.
Kim Davis is saying, "Me too."
I regretted it for all 48 hours.
Some are still on their phone; they're going back and forth.
A while back, I switched from an iPhone to Sony. Sony was making an
the
Galaxies,
Xperion or the Xperion or
No, this was
whatever.
like way before that. It was
Ericsson.
No, it was it was a Sony something, and it was the worst 2 days of my life.
I have never used an iPhone. I don't see it happening.
I don't see myself going back to anything but Apple products. I mean, I have the watch, I have the iPad,
Yeah,
the laptop.
just continue to give money to those people.
But it all works together so seamlessly and perfectly.
Because children are putting it together.
Well, my child happens to be the one using it.
Oh my God, a child working on devices that were made by children.
I know. Look at that. It's harmonious. It's
Circle of
harmonious.
life.
That's right.
No, now that the great breakdown of globalization has occurred, we will now see more manufacturing in the United States. So thank you,
Lord.
President Trump, for closing down the
When
country.
did this become a tech show?
If this could become if this could become an economic show, I would love it. I'd get here an hour early with actual material that I study. I study for these topics too. I'm not gonna lie. So.
Yeah. Well, if you would show up early, then maybe you could have your own podcast.
Bro, are we gonna have this conversation right now?
All right, everybody, let's get into
I'm
our
just
final
here
topic
for
of the
looks
night.
tonight, obviously, folks.
Kim Davis says the Samsung. Leona is saying that the phone wars.
phone
Yes,
wars.
and we all know what happens with the phone wars. The Republic goes down, and then the rebels.
phone wars are the only reason I've ever lost money in a stock. I
still here.
stupidly bought stock in Nokia.
Ew.
And that was a big mistake.
Anyways.
Nokia US, which notoriously is
Worse.
non-existent. I mean,
Hector, I tried Android for a year and didn't work out. Apple all the way for me. Of course,
man.
Hector agrees with you. Also, Hector, did you answer the question from before about the president firing the vice president? I don't remember that going through our West Wing chapters.
Wow, getting snippy over there.
I try.
All right, don't forget, everybody, we would appreciate you if you liked, shared, and commented on tonight's episode. And please get it out there into some of the other Facebook groups and social circles, if you will. We continue to look for new ways to distribute the show, like Playing Nice with Samsung phones. So now you can find us very easily on the Samsung Podcast platform.
I hope they're paying.
So-
you for this.
No, but
are
they're
not.
distributing the show for free. So, hey, I mean,
There you go.
I mean, our audio numbers are looking fantastic. So, I mean, I'll continue to push. Allegedly, I'll show you the numbers.
You tell me that every single week.
I forget to send
and
you. I'll send you
never said
screenshots.
no. It's fine. It's fine. If I get here an extra 5 minutes before the show starts, allegedly.
Well, see, if you had an Apple laptop, I could just airdrop it to you. I could just seamlessly.
or you could just put it in an email.
Who uses email anymore?
Oh my gosh! All my clients use emails all the time. Calm down with that.
All right, Judicial Watch, everybody. There are a lot of high-profile court cases races. Of course, the Cuomos are just kicking theirs off, but right now we're in the heat of what I think could, if we had an honest and pure journalist environment, I think could be the largest, most sensational court case possibly in the last maybe 2 or 3 decades. Maybe short of the OJ trial. In Ghislaine Maxwell, who was the longtime girlfriend, companion, assistant, whatever she wants to call herself now, of Jeffrey Epstein.
Out of 10 people on the street, if you walked up and said, "Who's Maxwell?" How many do you think will know?
They would think it was coffee.
One of them.
Honestly, they would think it was coffee.
One or two.
If you get 1 or 2, I would be shocked.
But the sensationalism, the reason this is such a big deal is because of all the names that are on the periphery.
We know that, but
yeah, but again, if all of a sudden she starts naming names and saying, and making accusations against people like Bill Clinton, like Bill Gates, like Prince Andrew, like all of a sudden people are really going to find out who Ghislaine Maxwell is.
Will it get to the average Joe on the street?
No.
If those names are actually named in this process, along with, who knows how many others. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein had a freaking portrait of Bill Clinton in a blue dress.
Was it blue or red?
It was blue.
It was blue because of
Monica.
Yeah, Monica Lewinsky.
You really wanted him to wear a red one?
He is a Democrat.
No, but the point being is that there are so many people that could be potentially implicated in this, and what again, many governments, including our own, are saying could be the largest sex trafficking ring in the world. Again, this has a monumental.
Why do you think Bill Clinton flew there so many times?
One, I don't think he could stand to be at home with Hillary. That's one thing right there.
I mean, if you had a friend, who had a private...
Bill Clinton was going to the house for therapy.
Right. If you had a friend who had a private island, a mega yacht, a private jet, that you could basically summon, at will, I mean, wouldn't you take advantage of that?
I mean,
I'd at least ask for a campaign donation.
I mean, I have in the past for friends like that, so I'm not going to say anything. But yeah, they'll write you like a $50 campaign check.
Oh yeah, of course, 'cause it's all going to the jet, the yacht, and the private island.
Oh my gosh.
And so again, obviously there are varying degrees as to what has come out. Some people are saying that Bill Clinton really didn't have any intimate moments with any of the young women that were on this island, but that they were giving him like massages and things like that.
He was there for fishing?
And yeah, sure. Fishing for an excuse, maybe.
Yeah.
It's and then of course Bill Gates, admitted to going not only for business reasons, but later on it even admitted that he was seeking counseling from Jeffrey Epstein of all people about his marriage to Melinda Gates.
Marriage.
Somebody who I don't think Jeffrey Epstein was married. Was he ever married?
No, he wasn't. No, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so. And so you have these horrible, very thin excuses, and a lot of, illegal and borderline illegal things happening on this private island.
And the only reason why we even know anything about this was because I think the Miami Herald was the one that broke it was a South Florida newspaper that broke the story that got him.
Well, because Epstein had a house in Palm
that got
Beach.
him arrested the first time in Florida, and then it was the AG back then, which I don't even know how that man is still allowed to practice any kind of law.
Yeah,
slapped him on the wrist, did like a few years of home arrest, and even then, the Bill Clinton, all these other people were still working with him, even after he had a record of being a sex offender. And so the simple fact is this: the house that he lived in New York was raided by the FBI. Evidently, there are mountains of tapes that Epstein had with him. Because of course, why wouldn't you blackmail everyone that you knew that's going through this?
And that's the thing: most people still till this day could not tell you what Jeffrey Epstein's actual services were. Like nobody, like he wasn't a banker, he wasn't an investor. I mean, there's some rumors that he was in the financial industry for some time, but towards the end, people could not tell you why he was rich, where he was getting his money from. And there are a lot of people that think that it was because he was not only running this sex trafficking ring, but that he was also, extorting money from individuals through blackmail.
I think again, the average Joe on the street, where, like we're saying, sex trafficking ring.
Yeah.
We're saying these things and this and that, and call it what it is. He was a pimp.
Yes.
Well, a pedophile, really.
Well,
he was a pimp.
He was a pimp.
Still a pimp.
He was a pimp.
So Kimberly Davis saying that the Little Black Book was officially admitted into evidence yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Was that from Maxwell or was that from Epstein? That's another conversation. Because again, I wouldn't be surprised if she was the second fiddle. If she wasn't the second in command of that entire ring.
She was the one that would talk to a lot of these young women and convince them to join their, organization and come work for Jeffrey. And she was the Pied Piper when it came to a lot of these women.
The corporate structure was quite fascinating, and then the exit packages for these girls.
Well, because for a man to convince a young woman to do that sort of thing, obviously would be incredibly difficult. But for another woman to present the case and make a career case out of it, a financial case out of it, obviously that brings down the barrier of entry significantly.
Where are all these women now?
So some of them are testifying in this current trial.
I think about 10 have come forward.
Yes. And they're not giving us the names. And the only names that are coming out of Maxwell's position are names of people that everyone already knows about. And so no new names have really come out. But Hector clarified for me in regards to, it was a South Florida Sun-Sentinel that broke the Epstein story. Right. And the AG was Alex Acosta from the Trump Labor Secretary.
Right. Yeah. Which that all quickly, they made him go away real quick.
You look at that in the other trial, you're talking about the Smollett.
I know what you're getting to, is that the average American doesn't care. Because
more of them, I think,
because it doesn't affect them.
But I believe more of them are more tuned into something like the Smollett trial than they are this, because I believe it's something that they can relate to.
Yeah. But I think you should always also be in the situation that a woman was taking advantage of other women, and we're giving these women basically as prizes to these very, very influential, very rich men. And just like eventually,
that's called a pimp.
It's a pimp. And I think people are making it cleaner than what it really is. And if you would be honest, again, we're from Florida, we're from Tampa, we have a deep sea port. We know about human trafficking. We fight for it. We fight against it all the time. Yeah. And so that's a situation that a lot of Floridians understand this situation. And in South Florida is a ridiculous amount of human trafficking that's happening. Mm-hmm. And the fact that no one is talking about this, again, I agree with
the fact that we're the gateway to South America, we're the gateway to, even to parts of Europe. Yeah.
And so I agree with Scott. I think the Jesse Maxwell is not going to get anywhere near compared to the hate, basically the false hate crime that occurred to Juicy Smollett. So I'm going to purposely say his name wrong every single time.
Is that French?
Oui. And so I think what he did was even worse in a lot of situations, because he purposely not worse to Maxwell, but he purposely lied to cause a rift of the American people, and try to do that to get more money in the negotiations during Empire, which I wanted to get into, and then this whole thing happened. I was like, I'm not watching it, but I was going to watch it for Cookie.
Which, she's a phenomenal actress.
But you look at this guy, and you would assume, looking on the surface, he's a smart individual. But how do you yourself go and hire the two guys to beat you up? Would you not get a middleman or a third party, somebody?
$3,500? No.
But see, I don't think he was making that kind of money yet. You know what I mean?
He was living in downtown.
And these two guys,
he was making
good money.
He was making 30-something thousand an episode.
No, I understand that, but
actually.
But it's
not that much.
Yeah, but you're talking about what, 12 episodes in a season?
You wouldn't want that?
It's not a fact of me. It's the fact that Big Bang Theory was giving over $1 million.
No, I know, but it's a six-figure job in downtown Chicago. Which again, it's to Anibal's point. He had a 6-figure job, but he's living in downtown Chicago. Which again doesn't add up. The dollar doesn't stretch that far.
No.
Then I think the other thing was that these two Nigerian men who actually committed, the favor.
Is that a crime?
I mean, is it a crime to hire somebody to
If
beat you
someone
up?
pays you to beat you up, is that a crime?
It's a crime to file a false.
No.
It was
Is
about
it
the
a
police
crime?
report.
Is it illegal?
Okay, let me take one step back.
For the guys.
No, wait. It's a better word.
I don't think so.
If this is Je suis Samuel's kink to get beaten up and pay for it, that's one thing.
Right.
But the moment you actually file a police report is when the crime is conducted.
He committed a crime.
Yeah.
But if you gave me $100 to take you outside and beat you up, is that a crime on my part?
No, because again, I don't know what his kink is, and maybe that's his thing. I don't know. But it's not a crime for you to beat someone up that's paying you to do that service.
Yeah. So the truth is that we don't know. I mean, it's
Six-figure apartment. The comment section is hilarious right now.
But you're right. I think more people are probably going to care about the Smollett case than sadly
more relatable
than the Maxwell case, right?
The Jesse Smollett case. I'm sorry if anyone saw the movie Liar Liar.
Well, and we love
with Jim Carrey when he beat himself up in the bathroom.
But
that to me is Jesse
and
Smollett.
as Americans, we love to see the rise and fall of our celebrities. You know what I mean? We're obsessed with it. I mean, you look at and the fact that he was on his way up. He was skyrocketing.
Got to be honest, I didn't know him until
his star was rising. You know what I mean? Which is why he was demanding more money, and he thought that this controversy was going to make his name more mainstream.
Oh, it did.
It did. Right.
He was in the Mighty Ducks too. Well, he was in the Mighty Ducks. He was in Skinny, Powerful Empire. I had no idea he was in the Mighty Ducks.
What was he in the Mighty Ducks?
Movie 1992.
No, I know
who.
Give me about 3 more minutes.
He had to be one of the two brothers.
Why I got to be one of the two?
No, I'm actually mean brothers, not brother. I mean brothers. You had to be one of the two brothers that played on the team.
I was too old for all those Mighty Ducks movies. So.
I loved them. They were really cool.
Yeah. I think Smollett probably gets off because he probably has enough money to have decent.
I don't think he gets off.
No,
I think he gets off.
I don't think that jury.
I think he gets probation. I think he
is it a jury trial?
I don't know. Is it a jury trial?
It is a jury trial.
That jury deliberates for 5 minutes.
Because he was already technically
I'm not saying
found
he's
guilty.
Not guilty. He was already guilty.
He was already found guilty once because they were going to just have him do community service, and then the AG at the time was removed, and then they did the full trial.
That's why I'm saying he doesn't get a little slap. He's going to serve time.
Yes,
right, because of the crooked AG in that situation.
Right.
I forgot about that.
So he was one of the two brothers, Terry Hall and Jesse Hall.
Oh my God!
Thank you.
Yeah, it's you, Coach.
Yeah. You were also. When would this movie come out? Yeah, 80. No. When did this movie come out?
What, the Mighty Ducks was in
Mighty Ducks would have been early 90s.
Of course, he's going to remember. He was like in his 30s when it happened.
Wow.
92. We're hearing from
the
92?
producer. Okay, so I was in middle school.
In 92, I was
Yeah,
that was 12.
27.
I mean, no, so I was 12, so that I guess it was borderline. I think it was probably like one of those I'm too cool to watch this little kid movie about hockey. Plus, I'm from Miami. Like
you were too cool.
We had the Panthers.
You were too cool.
No,
weren't you a cheerleader?
As a teenager?
Hey,
not in 92. Thank you very much.
I was too.
That explains everything.
Not in 92. I wasn't. That came much later. But when we're talking about
after the show, you got to tell me what this means.
Honestly, I don't even know when the producer does it. I have no idea what that means.
When she does it, I'm still trying to learn what this means.
Honestly, I don't know.
Anyways, I don't care for any of the Mighty Ducks franchise. That's all I was trying to say.
Wow,
those are fighting words.
I was a teenager from Miami. Hockey. It was
you didn't like.
Hockey might as well have been a foreign sport because
you probably didn't like Rocky either.
No, I mean boxing. Hello, Miami is very pivotal to boxing with the Fifth Street Gym.
I
Muhammad
know
Ali.
you weren't born when Rocky came out. Go ahead
I
there.
apologize
Too.
for
No,
that.
but with hockey, as a Latin American kid living in Miami, you couldn't relate to a movie about hockey.
You're gonna pull out because you're a
Because-
because you're a Latinx person. You're not
I don't
gonna
think
be-
we
you're
even
gonna
had a
pull it up?
hockey team yet in Florida, or maybe even at least South Florida. I don't even know what.
The Panthers came before the Lightning, I believe.
Right, but what year was that?
Well, I know the Lightning came out the year I donated a kidney to my father. Seriously, that's how I remember it.
Sure.
The Lightning came out that year, so that was 92, 93.
Okay, that was the Lightning.
Could have been 94.
And you're saying the Florida Panthers came before that?
I believe, or just right
Yeah.
after. But I remember, that's the only reason I remember the Lightning,
Right.
because someone gave me a Lightning jacket as a present.
But see, as a kid,
Great,
to
I gave
me,
a kidney,
my
I get a
world,
Lightning jacket.
my world was soccer and baseball. That's all I cared about. No, that was probably the other thing. I didn't.
Soccer's
93.
a common.
I had no connection to
90,
hockey.
93 is when the Florida Panthers.
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 And when did the Lightning
I'm
come
offended right now.
out? It might have been the same year.
So that was 93.
Probably an expansion, you know.
Yes, 93. So
I think that year the Colorado Avalanche also came out. I think they were all-
No. That
weren't they all part of that same expansion?
no.
they wouldn't have given the state two at the same time.
No.
No, I'm not talking about the Lightning. I'm saying the Florida Panthers, I think, came out the same year as the
Ooh,
Colorado.
92.
I thank you. That's what I'm saying. I know.
Right, so the Lightning
Yeah,
came
you were
out.
conscious during this time. Exactly.
So the Panthers came out, and then the Lightning came out.
No, the Lightning.
Were
then
first?
a year later.
Watch the producer.
Panthers.
Yeah. I know. We became a sports show now.
She's doing
She's
this.
doing
that
this again.
means
a
that-
sports show now.
You know what? That's like Sam Weiss with the Bucks back in the days. You know, run it again.
Well, if anything, I've learned more about our state sport history than anything on this episode.
So why can't this become an economics podcast?
I've offered you many times to do your own.
We have
podcast.
never sat down and talked about this.
Whose fault is that?
Whose fault is that?
Take some initiative, Anibal. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to call.
Why do I feel like I'm a referee?
That's going to
tonight
be the end of the
speaking
yard
sports?
sign. Thank you so much for watching, listening,
One of these days.
wherever you might be doing so. I appreciate Anibal David Cabrera, Scott
Lies.
Levinson,
Lies.
candidate for Hillsborough County Commission District 1, and make sure you visit votescottlevinson.com.
Scott, like, say that again. Try that again.
Votescottlevinson.com.
Oh, we have it on the screen.
Levinson.com.
He is the
Vote
Look at that.
the
It's on your
great,
little
the
graphic.
great white hope of Hillsborough County.
I need. Don't. What? Stop saying that.
What did he say?
I don't know.
Aren't you on the campaign
VoteLevinson.com. If I don't, and also because I know Kimberly Davis is on there with us. Kimberly, I'm going to say VoteLevinson.com. Please donate.
There we go.
There. Now she's happy.
She's happy. I need to be the one that's happy. He's also running for District 1 for Hillsborough County.
That's what I
Everyone
said. I've said District 1.
Keep saying it. Just keep going. Yeah, I'm okay.
All right. Thank you, Anibal. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, everybody, for watching, listening.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Whenever, wherever you may be doing so. Don't forget, you can catch the audio version of our podcast over at the Tech Overlords at Google, Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, Odyssey, iHeartRadio, and now Samsung Podcasts. On behalf of our producer, Lindsay, Anibal, Scott, thank you so much. We will catch you back here next Monday night. Good night, everybody. Ah!